Welcome to Working Progress. This is the podcast where we dive into strategies for success and journey towards progress. So, what does it mean to have tools for the future? And how can leaders harness AI and other emerging technologies without losing the human connection that makes leadership meaningful? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring today. We are joined again by Trevor O'Sullivan, Master Distributor for TTI Success Insights, Australia and New Zealand. Trevor knows how leaders can unlock their team's potential, personalize their approach, and stay ahead in this rapidly evolving world. In this episode, we will talk about integrating new tools effectively, fostering trust, building a culture of continuous learning, and finding the biggest opportunities to elevate team performance without ever losing sight of the people at the center. So let's get started. Trevor, thanks so much for joining us again and here in the office in Scottsdale.
Yep, always happy to join you in Scottsdale. Nice weather and looking forward to going home, but always love coming out to visit.
Beautiful. Well, let's kick it off. When you think about the phrase tools for the future, what does it mean for you? And how do you see those tools shaping the way leaders drive team for performance and development?
Yeah, look, I think of tools of the future in a few different ways. Like if you think about it from the perspective of us as an assessment provider, I like to think about how we evolve those tools for the way the world is evolving. This age of AI is certainly interesting, how fast things are moving, but really tools of the future are about speed. It's about change. And I like to think of the term leverage. You know, how do we leverage those tools to maximize whatever it is we're trying to do?
Yep.
So one of the sort of ideas I like to think about when it comes to these things is it's like hacks or patches on a computer software. You know, how can we patch this thing that's been annoying us or making it a little bit harder? How can we use technology or a new approach or something different to move that forward?
I like that. So we're seeing this growing collaboration between human and AI in the workplace. How do you see that changing what it means to be a transformational leader today?
Yeah, look, I had a funny conversation with my wife the other day where I said, I think ChatGPT is my new best friend. And,
Was she jealous?
No, she let me know that she was my best friend. But what I really enjoyed about the interaction is it starts to learn how you like to be responded to. You know, it's all the stuff we take people through with these assessments, and it starts to respond, and you say, "Please don't do that again," and it never does it again.
Yeah.
It's really responsive. So I really like that. But when I think about it in terms of as a leader, I think it's key that we've got to start helping people see AI not as a competitor, but as a teammate. And it's just another teammate. You know, I was at my home the other day, my home office, and I was chatting away, and there was a tradesperson who we use in our home, handyman, who comes around, and he walked past my office, and he was like, "Are you on a meeting?" Because he was in and out of the house. I was, no, I'm just chatting to the GPT, because I treat it like a team member. I actually brainstorm with it, and I use the audio version. But I think we've got to stop looking at it as a competitor. Yeah. Our job's going to change because of AI. Of course they are. But it also means it frees us up to do other things.
Absolutely.
You know, we get to get rid of some of that menial stuff that we do in our lives. One of the other things that I think it means for leaders that's key is I shared with you an article from McKinsey recently that we've got to stop trying to bolt AI onto what we already do.
Yeah.
This was the comment in the article that I really resonated with, and we've actually got to start redesigning things to include it. How do we use it within our work to make our work better?
Yeah.
Not just bolt it on at the end to say, "Hey, ChatGPT, tidy up this email." You know, those kinds of things, but we can actually use it to be more efficient, to and ultimately get back to those things that we really want to do. Spend more time with our kids, all those things. And I think that's key. I think the other thing that leaders need to do in these situations is they've got to let go of but that's not how we do it.
Yeah.
We have to put in the man hours to get there, that kind of stuff. Like, we've got to get over that and think, well, the people who are really doing a great job are the ones who get to go home at 4:00 because they've finished their day. They've got everything done they need to get done, and they get to go spend time with their family or do those other things. So I think they're the couple of things that we've got to kind of shift mindsets when it comes to leading teams in this new age.
So it's kind of like work smarter, not harder.
100%.
Yeah.
These tools, they're just augmenting what we can do. That's all they do right now.
Yeah.
Are there versions of AI in the future that do more? Of course. It's coming. But right now they just augment what we do.
Yep, absolutely. So again, because of AI, leaders today have more ways than ever to tailor their approach to each individual, which is nice. It's not as time consuming. So what does personalization in leadership look like to you right now?
Yeah, look, I've always been of the belief that in every leader's job description, no matter where they are on a football team, in a supermarket, in a corporate office, it doesn't matter. Somewhere in that job description, it says to get the best out of my people.
Yep.
It's there in some way, shape, or form. It's a KPI that's measured. It's it's something that's a part of their job. So I've always believed that you've got to meet people where they're at. Mm-hmm. You've got to adapt your approach to people, and all the things that we teach as a part of, taking someone through their DISC profile, their driving forces, or any of those other tools that we have. It's be aware of me, then become aware of the people around me, then adapt my approach. Mm-hmm. What these tools give us, though, is a sort of a nuanced layer where we can say something like to a GPT, hey, I've got this person who really likes a lot more detail than I do. This is what I want to say. How can I help them see the value in this with supporting it with some extra detail? And, a GPT will quickly put something out on that. But I always come back to this key idea. It comes from a book. It's one of my favorite books around leadership, which is called First Break All the Rules by Marcus Buckingham. And it was one of the biggest studies at the time ever done on leadership. It was 80,000 managers.
Wow.
And it talked about, it's the subtitle of the book, what great managers do differently. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they did is they focused on strengths, and they didn't ignore weaknesses, but they looked for ways to minimize or mitigate weaknesses. And okay. I've always used that as my basic philosophy around how to work with people and personalize the approach with them.
Yeah. So with the many new technologies and approaches that are coming out, how can leaders integrate these tools without losing the human connection and authenticity that make their leadership effective?
Yeah, look, I think it all comes down to intentionality.
Okay.
Why are we doing it? Why are we integrating this thing? Is it to release potential or to create control? And I think they're the things that sometimes leaders don't like to let go of control. Sometimes it's difficult. No. Easier for some than others, but at the end of the day, when we start to let go, we feel a little powerless, and I think when we talk about the human connection, it's all in how we deliver it, right? So I can go to a ChatGPT window and type, I need to write an email to Shauna about her performance this month. Yep. This is what I want to say. And it spits out this nice words. But then that might not be the best way to deliver that to anyone, really. But, especially Shauna, who wants to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
So, we might need to adapt that approach to how would we give that feedback if we were going to give it verbally rather than written.
Okay.
How can we use these tools at the end of the day to be a more effective leader rather than, just adding more stuff? We don't want to add stuff for the sake of stuff.
Yes.
Is really the key.
We have enough stuff, and it seems like with everything that is coming along, we don't want something else that we have to learn and then really invest time in. We just sometimes want it to work, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So where do you think some of the biggest opportunities lie for leaders who want to elevate their team's performance and potential in this new environment?
I think the first thing is you've got to be open to learn.
Okay.
You've just got to be willing to try things and see what works for you, what doesn't work for you. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about specific tools, but there was one that I've heard about recently that I haven't actually used, which is called Tactic, which ends in a Q, not a C.
Oh, okay.
But this is a meeting tool that you can have recording meetings like this meeting that's going on right now. And it literally writes action notes for each person, does the whole thing, makes a suggestion. You can actually turn around and say to it, based on the strategic conversation we've had today, give us a suggestion on how we might be able to, go into this new market or go into the roll out this new strategy. That's incredibly powerful, but you got to be open to trying those things and just seeing how it goes. The other thing is embracing it for what it is. Like I always come back to the simple idea that, specifically AI, when we talk about these things, we often think there's this really amazing simulation of a human. It's not. No. It's just math.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's just math. I'm not good enough to be able to explain the math to you.
Yes.
But, it's just a big probability function. That's really all it is. And, when you think about it like that, you're like, okay, it's not that amazing. It feels amazing.
Yes.
But it's not that amazing. It's not unique like we are, generating a new thought, those kinds of things. It's regurgitating things that it thinks you want to hear.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's interesting that you bring up the math side of it, because once you, like you say, dig into it and understand how it works, it'll give you an answer and how did it come up with that? That's wrong. Well, you gave it one specific word that it turned the entire conversation. So to your point, use it. It's something that can generate ideas. It can do all of those things, but it doesn't take that people aspect out of it either.
Yeah. And look, the thing we've got to be really careful about with, specifically LLMs where we're interacting with them, chatting with them, that kind of thing. We've got to be really mindful that just because it says it doesn't make it true.
No.
My son is 10 and he comes home from school telling me that, this person said that this happened and, it's a fact. Like, have you checked that fact?
Yeah.
No. I think that's what we've got to do when it comes to these tools.
Yep.
We've got to look back and say, does this seem right?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't seem right, then dig deeper.
Okay.
I think we've got to be really careful about those things. So, learn about these things, embrace them, but, also just fact check.
Yeah.
Really bring it back to something simple and just check everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Adopting new tools or approaches, it's not easy, especially for some behavioral styles. So what are some of the biggest challenges that leaders might face when doing this, and how can they keep the team impact front and center?
Yeah, look, I think the first thing is we don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
And if we're not out there exploring what's out there and sort of seeing what other people are doing and listening out for opportunities to apply these different tools, then we're missing that opportunity. And I think one of the key things that you see in teams or with leaders is that they're not okay to experiment. They don't want to just try something and see how it goes.
Yeah.
They want to be certain, or they want to, I think sometimes we've just got to be comfortable with the unknown.
Yeah.
Say, hey, we're going to try this thing out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But let's just give it a shot, see what it does. One of the best investments I made was I bought a membership to the masterclass learning channel, or I don't know how to describe it. It's an app. It's on our TVs, and my son and I over Christmas sat and watched one on AI, and it was talking about how you can make a song and you could do this and you could do that. And he said, hey, Dad, can we go try that out? And we went and made songs about his life. And
yes.
My son can't play an instrument, but he can tell this, he's interacting with music in that way, and that's amazing. So I think we've got to look for those opportunities to embrace these new technologies.
It's funny that you mentioned that. My project that my son had to do in school is they had to come up with a rap. And so my son and his friend, they got second place, but the two boys that beat them, they did their Chat GPT rap.
Yep.
And it won. And so he was very frustrated because he said it's not fair. They won, but they did it through Chat GPT. We actually spent the time and the energy to make something. And so it is interesting, but it's also fun. They can do a lot of things and interact with it in different ways. And it allows them to maybe explore more creatively sometimes.
Yep. My son loves the Canva AI in there, create me an image that looks like this. And, he'll quite happily sit there and do that instead of watching the garbage that's on TV or, those. I'd much rather he did that because he's using his brain. He's still looking at a screen, I suppose. But
yes.
He's at least using his brain to think about, no, I don't like that. I'd like to change it this way.
Yeah. Yes. So as AI becomes part of everyday work, what should leaders be thinking about when it comes to reskilling and building their team's capabilities?
Yeah. Look, I think the first thing is we've got to make it okay. I think right now there's a lot of shame kind of thrown at people, like similar to your son's experience, right? He took the time to write everything and do it all the right way, but they beat me. But they just used a tool.
They did.
That's all they did. And, I feel for your son for him not winning his competition, but, at the same time, they just found another way to produce art.
Yes.
They had to prompt it. They had to make changes. They had to, I guess, put music to it and do all those things. So they still created music. They just took a different route.
Absolutely.
And I think what we do in the corporate space in particular is, you can't use AI. Like that's cheating. No, it's not. It's actually just the smarter way to do it, if it's producing the right result. We had an incident in Australia where a Deloitte consultant has submitted a report to a customer. It was a $440,000 contract. And they submitted a report that was generated 100% through ChatGPT, and it was full of incorrect references that they did not fact check.
Okay.
So, it happens to the top level consultants, in the world, you would argue, but got lazy.
Yeah.
Didn't go through and check, It's something that we've got to be mindful of. So, I think we've got to educate around privacy and safety with these tools. I wouldn't be giving it names and addresses and things like that. Who knows where that stuff ends up? They all tell us that our model doesn't learn from you, but hey, who knows where that stuff goes once it crosses the ether. But the other thing that I think is really important is make it okay to fail.
Yeah.
Try it, doesn't work. It's okay. Move on. Move to the next one. Try the next one. See which one works.
Yeah.
And then go.
Okay. So you mentioned one, make it okay to fail, but what mindsets or habits do you think will matter most for leaders navigating this next chapter of work?
The biggest one is you cannot say it won't work here.
Okay.
Or can't work in this application.
Yep.
I mean, the math that sits behind all these things is just incredible at making connections and connecting this idea to that idea or this word to that word. That's really all it's good at. And those connections are amazing, when you can unlock those. But I think the key is, first of all, I said it earlier, don't shame it. It's okay for people to try to find better. In the past, if you found a way to speed up a production line, you were praised, not shamed.
Absolutely.
I think, and maintain quality, that would be something that we probably have to toss in there. But continuous learning is the other thing.
Okay.
Got to just, like, this stuff is moving so fast. Yes. I have fallen into this trap where a team member came to me with a video production version of an AI that said, oh, this is amazing. You just type in the words and the avatar says it. And I said, yeah, but you look at it and it looks like it's fake.
Yeah.
And so I dismissed it, and they've brought it back several times. It's getting better. It's getting, looks like almost like one of those dubbed movies where the mouth isn't quite right, but they're getting better. Like it's actually frightening what you can do now. I once saw it was one of those reels coming past, and it's some guy there talking into a microphone with a picture of Taylor Swift saying exactly what he was saying right next to him, and it looks like Taylor Swift is saying that. So it's out there. So you got to be open to learning again. If it wasn't right the first time, it doesn't mean it's not right forever. And it's just moving so fast.
Yes.
ChatGPT is it's what most people know. It's the bare minimum.
Yes.
There's so much more out there.
Absolutely. Well, trust is such a key part of great leadership. How can leaders foster a culture where people feel comfortable collaborating with AI and still see their work as meaningful?
I always use the phrase that we are all unique and special snowflakes. We are. Even in what we do with, say, DISC, right? We take the infinite number of ways people can behave and put it into this pattern of 4 things.
Yep.
And that's a very crude example, but we're taking this huge number of possibilities and distilling it down into this finite number of things. And I think as humans, we have this ability to do something that the AI can't. And we can rationalize things. We can, it's not, I know it feels like it's talking to you, but it's not. It's just math.
Yep.
And it's something that I think we've just got to always come back to that idea that a real connection with a real human is very different to speaking to, Siri or, one of these other speaking bots. But the other thing that I always come back to, and I don't actually know the wattage that is used by one of these data centers, but they're huge. There's one here in Phoenix that, it's enormous, this facility, and I can only imagine how much power is used by one compute to answer one ChatGPT query. Your brain runs on 10 to 20 watts.
Yep.
And it can do even more. It might not be as fast.
No.
But it can do things that thing can't do. And what I always come back to is remember that the AI is trying to emulate you, not the other way around.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So it's trying to be more human.
Absolutely.
It's not us trying to be more machine.
Interesting. I like that. Well, last question. If you were to offer one piece of advice to leaders working to build a culture of continuous learning, that's one of the things that we've talked about, where both people and technology evolve together, what would it be?
So the first one is encourage low risk, low cost experiments.
Okay.
They don't have to be long-term things. Just make it okay to fail and go into it with we just want to learn something out of this. That's our goal. It's not to get it perfect. It's not to get it right. It's just to learn.
Yeah.
And I think that's step number one. The other one is you then have to model that as the leader. Like you've got to show that I play this game too. It's not, my father used to have the phrase, because I'm the dad and you're the kid, when I'd ask him why. So you can't use my dad's mentality. So you have to be willing to put yourself on the line too.
Yeah.
Show that you've failed trying these things out. And the last one is just be curious.
Yeah.
Be open to those inputs because, tactic, the one that I mentioned earlier, was a conversation I had in a car with someone saying, I had this meeting the other day where we used this thing. We were just trying it out and it came up with a strategic plan for how do we roll this thing out after listening to our conversation for the day. Like, wow. And she made the statement to me that, hey, we could have done it, but just to get to the point of where it told us what forms we'd have to fill out with the government and all those, or at least where we'd have to look, that would have taken weeks.
Yeah.
And it was there at the end of their meeting. So I think you got to be curious. You got to think, what's the cost of a meeting these days? The 4 people in this room, the hourly wages plus what we're not doing right now.
Absolutely.
It's simple math.
Yeah.
Be curious. How do we spend our time doing high value tasks?
Yep.
Not the mundane stuff.
Love it. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Working Progress. A big thank you to Trevor for sharing his insight on how leaders embrace new tools, including AI, while staying authentic, connected, and focused on developing their teams. If you found today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with a colleague or fellow leader. Your support helps us continue bringing these meaningful conversations to life. And remember, the future of leadership isn't just about the tools you use. It's about the courage to adapt, the focus to keep people at the center, and the commitment to foster a culture where both people and technology can evolve together. As always, thank you for listening. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep making progress. Take care, everyone.